My name is Jessica, and I am 29 years old. For 3 years, I worked as a marketing coordinator at Pinnacle Solutions, a mid-sized consulting firm in Chicago. I loved my job, I was good at it, and I thought my boss Marcus Williams respected my work. I was about to learn how wrong I was. It was a Thursday morning in October when I found out I was pregnant. My husband Jake and I had been trying for 8 months, and we were over the moon. After talking it through, we decided I would wait until after my first trimester to tell anyone at work. Standard advice, right? Give yourself time to process, make sure everything was progressing well, then share the news professionally. But life had other plans. 2 weeks later, during our monthly team meeting, I had to excuse myself suddenly to throw up. Morning sickness had hit me hard that particular day. I tried to be discreet, but when you are rushing out of a conference room with your hand over your mouth, people notice. My colleague Amanda followed me to the bathroom. Are you okay? You have been looking a little green lately. I should have made something up. Food poisoning, stomach bug, anything. Instead, I found myself telling her the truth. Amanda had become a friend over the past year, and I was excited to share the news with someone. I am pregnant, I whispered, glancing around the empty bathroom. But please do not tell anyone. It is still early. Amanda hugged me and promised to keep it quiet. I believed her. The next morning, Marcus called me into his office. He was sitting behind his desk with a serious expression, fingers steepled in front of him like he was about to deliver bad news. Jessica, we need to discuss your recent performance. I sat down, confused. My last performance review had been excellent. I had just successfully completed a major campaign for our biggest client. Is there a problem with something specific? There have been some concerns about your commitment level lately. Missing parts of meetings, seeming distracted, not being as available as we need you to be. My stomach dropped. Missing parts of meetings? I had left one meeting to throw up. Distracted? I had been performing at the same high level as always. Marcus, I am not sure what you mean. My work has been consistent, and all my projects are on track or ahead of schedule. He leaned back in his chair. Jessica, I am going to be direct with you. I heard through the grapevine that you might be pregnant. Is that true? The question hit me like a physical blow. He was not supposed to ask that. I knew enough about employment law to know that pregnancy discrimination was illegal. But there I was, sitting in his office, being asked directly about my pregnancy status. I do not think that is an appropriate question for a workplace setting, I said carefully. Look, I am not trying to be inappropriate. But if you are pregnant, that affects this team. It affects our workload, our planning, our client commitments. I need to know what I am dealing with here. I should have walked out. I should have gone straight to HR. Instead, I found myself answering him. Yes, I am pregnant. But it is very early, and it will not affect my work performance. The expression on his face changed immediately. Not congratulations, not even polite acknowledgement. Just calculation. How early? About 8 weeks. He was quiet for a long moment, clearly doing math in his head. So you would be due sometime in June? Around then, yes. That is right in the middle of our busiest season. The Henderson campaign launches in May, the Morrison project wraps up in July. This is really going to complicate things. I felt heat rising in my cheeks. Marcus, pregnancy is a normal life event. I am entitled to maternity leave, and plenty of women work right up until they give birth. This does not have to complicate anything. Jessica, I appreciate your optimism, but let us be realistic here. You are going to be tired, you are going to have doctor appointments, you are going to be thinking about the baby instead of focusing on work. And then you are going to take 3 months off right when we need you most. 3 months is standard maternity leave. It is protected by law. Protected by law does not mean it does not create problems for the rest of us. I stared at him, realizing that this conversation was not going the way I had hoped it would. Are you saying you have a problem with me being pregnant? I am saying I have a problem with the timing. And I am concerned about whether you are going to be able to handle your current workload. My workload has not changed. I have not missed any deadlines or dropped any balls. Yet. That single word hung in the air between us like a threat. What exactly are you saying, Marcus? He leaned forward, his voice taking on a tone I had never heard from him before. Cold, calculating. I am saying that maybe we should consider whether this position is the right fit for you right now. Maybe you should think about taking some time off, focusing on your health and the pregnancy. We could work out some kind of arrangement. What kind of arrangement? Well, you could resign now, and we could give you a positive reference for when you are ready to work again. After the baby, after you have had time to adjust to being a mother. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. You want me to resign because I am pregnant? I want what is best for everyone involved. Including you and the baby. I stood up, my hands shaking. I need to think about this. Of course. Take the weekend. Let me know Monday what you decide. I walked out of his office in a daze. Amanda was waiting by my desk, clearly concerned. How did it go? He knows, I said quietly. And he wants me to resign. Her face went white. Oh my God, Jessica, I am so sorry. I did not tell him directly, but I might have mentioned it to Sarah, and she might have. It does not matter how he found out, I said, though inside I was furious. What matters is what he is doing about it. That weekend, I could not stop thinking about the conversation. Jake was ready to march into Marcus's office and tell him exactly what he thought of bosses who pressure pregnant women to quit. But I convinced him to let me handle it. Sunday night, I made a decision. I was not going to resign. I was going to fight. But I was also going to be smart about it. Monday morning, I walked into Marcus's office with a smile on my face and a small recording device in my pocket. Illinois is a one-party consent state, which means I could legally record conversations as long as I was part of them. I had done my research. Good morning, Marcus. I have been thinking about our conversation on Friday. He looked up from his computer, clearly expecting me to hand him a resignation letter. And? I have decided that I want to stay with the company. I love my job, and I think I can continue to perform at a high level throughout my pregnancy. His expression darkened immediately. Jessica, I thought we discussed this. The timing is really not good for the company. I understand that my pregnancy might require some accommodation down the line, but right now, I am fully capable of doing my job. Look, I am trying to be nice about this, but let me be more direct. Having a pregnant woman on this team is going to create problems. Clients are going to notice. Other employees are going to have to pick up your slack. It is not fair to anyone. I kept my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. Are you saying you want to terminate me because of my pregnancy? I am saying that your pregnancy makes you less valuable to this company right now. Less valuable how? You are going to be unreliable. You are going to be distracted. You are going to take time off for appointments and morning sickness and whatever else comes up. And then you are going to disappear for months right when we need you most. Marcus, what you are describing sounds like pregnancy discrimination, which is illegal under federal law. He laughed, actually laughed. Jessica, come on. Discrimination? I am trying to have an honest conversation about business realities here. The business reality is that pregnancy is protected by the Pregnancy Discrimination Act and the Family and Medical Leave Act, and the business reality is that those laws do not change the fact that pregnant employees are more expensive and less productive. I could not believe he was saying these things out loud. Even if he believed them, most managers would be smart enough not to voice them so clearly. So what are you proposing? I am proposing that you make this easy on everyone and resign. We will give you 2 weeks severance and a positive reference. And if I do not resign? His demeanor changed completely. The fake friendliness disappeared, replaced by something much colder. Then we are going to have to evaluate your performance very carefully going forward. And I suspect we are going to find some areas where you are not meeting expectations. Are you threatening to fire me if I do not quit? I am telling you that your performance is going to be under increased scrutiny. And if your work suffers because of your pregnancy, we are going to have to take appropriate action. I looked him in the eye. And what if my work does not suffer? Jessica, let us be realistic. You are already missing meetings and seeming distracted. It is only going to get worse. I missed part of one meeting because I had morning sickness. That is a temporary symptom that usually resolves by the second trimester. Usually is not good enough for me. I need employees I can count on 100% of the time. That is an unrealistic standard for anyone, pregnant or not. People get sick, people have emergencies, people have lives outside of work. Not on my team, they do not. The conversation continued for another 10 minutes, with Marcus making increasingly explicit statements about how my pregnancy made me a liability to the company. He talked about how clients would not want to work with a pregnant woman because it would seem unprofessional. He mentioned that other team members were already complaining about having to cover for me, even though I had not missed any significant work time. Every word was being recorded. Finally, I stood up. I think I should get back to work now. Think about what we discussed, Jessica. Really think about whether this is the right environment for you right now. I will certainly think about everything you have said. That evening, I called my sister Rachel, who is an employment attorney in Minneapolis. Rach, I need some legal advice. What is going on? I told her everything, and then I played her parts of the recording from that morning. Holy shit, Jess. He actually said all of that? Every word. This is the most clear-cut case of pregnancy discrimination I have ever heard. He is basically giving you a step-by-step guide for how to sue him. So what do I do? First, keep recording everything. Every conversation, every meeting, every interaction. Second, document everything in writing. Times, dates, witnesses, exact quotes if you can remember them. Third, do not resign no matter what he does. What if he fires me? Then you have an even stronger case. But based on what you have told me, he is going to try to make your life miserable first, hoping you will quit on your own. I do not know if I can handle that. You can handle it. And when you are done handling it, you are going to own that company. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus made good on his threats. Suddenly, every piece of work I submitted was heavily criticized. Projects that would have been approved immediately now required multiple revisions. Deadlines that had always been flexible became rigid requirements. He started scheduling important meetings at the last minute, then expressing disappointment when I could not attend due to already scheduled doctor appointments. He began copying other managers on emails about my work, highlighting any small mistakes or delays. Most telling, he started having conversations about my pregnancy and work performance with other team members, making it clear that he viewed my pregnancy as a problem for the entire department. I recorded as many of these interactions as I could. I documented everything in a detailed log. And I continued to do my job at the same high level I always had, despite the increased scrutiny and criticism. 3 weeks after our first conversation, Marcus called me into his office again. Jessica, we need to talk about your performance over the past few weeks. I sat down with my recorder running. What about it? It has been declining significantly. The Morrison project revisions were late, you missed the client call on Wednesday, and your work on the Henderson campaign has been subpar. I had expected this. Marcus, the Morrison revisions were late because you requested 3 additional rounds of changes that were not in the original scope. I missed the client call because I had a doctor appointment that was scheduled 2 weeks in advance, which I told you about. And the Henderson campaign work received positive feedback from the client. That is not how I see it. How do you see it? I see an employee whose pregnancy is affecting her ability to do her job effectively. Can you give me specific examples of how my pregnancy has affected my work quality? You just do not seem as focused as you used to be. You seem tired, distracted. Your attention to detail is not what it was. Can you point to specific errors or missed deadlines that support that assessment? It is not about specific errors. It is about overall performance and attitude. What about my attitude has changed? You seem less committed to the team. Less willing to go above and beyond. More focused on your own needs than the company's needs. Are you referring to my doctor appointments? I am referring to your overall approach to work. Before you got pregnant, you were a team player. Now you seem more concerned with your personal situation. Marcus, I have not missed any deadlines, I have not made any significant errors, and I have continued to receive positive feedback from clients. What objective measures are you using to evaluate my performance? Sometimes performance is not just about objective measures. Sometimes it is about fit, about whether someone is the right match for the team and the company culture. I felt a chill run down my spine. Are you saying I am not a good fit because I am pregnant? I am saying your priorities have changed, and that affects your value to this organization. My priorities have not changed. I am still committed to doing excellent work. But you are also committed to your pregnancy, and those two commitments are in conflict. How are they in conflict? Because being pregnant means you are going to be less available, less flexible, less focused on work. That is just reality. That is not reality, that is your assumption about pregnant women. It is my experience with pregnant employees. How many pregnant employees have you managed? He paused, clearly not wanting to answer. That is not relevant. It seems very relevant to me. Look, Jessica, I am not going to argue with you about this. I have made a decision about your employment status. My heart started pounding. What decision? I am terminating your employment, effective immediately. On what grounds? Performance issues and poor fit with company culture. Performance issues that you cannot specifically identify, and poor fit that is based on my pregnancy status. Your pregnancy status has nothing to do with this decision. Marcus, you have spent the last 3 weeks telling me that my pregnancy makes me less valuable, less reliable, and less committed. You have repeatedly stated that having a pregnant woman on your team creates problems. How can you now say that my pregnancy has nothing to do with this termination? Because I am terminating you for performance reasons, not because you are pregnant. Performance reasons that coincidentally appeared right after I told you I was pregnant. Your performance decline is documented. Where is this documentation? I have been keeping notes on our conversations and your work quality. Can I see these notes? They are internal personnel documents. So you are firing me based on secret documentation that I cannot see or respond to. I am firing you for cause, which means you are not eligible for unemployment benefits or severance pay. The callousness of it took my breath away. Not only was he firing me illegally, he was trying to make sure I had no financial support during my pregnancy. This is pregnancy discrimination, Marcus. This is a performance-based termination. You are welcome to file for unemployment, but I will contest it based on your poor performance. And I am welcome to file a discrimination complaint with the EEOC. His expression hardened. You can file whatever you want. Good luck proving that this has anything to do with your pregnancy. I stood up slowly. I need to clean out my desk. Security will escort you out. Your personal items will be mailed to you. You are not even going to let me say goodbye to my colleagues? I think it is better for everyone if you leave quietly. 20 minutes later, I was standing on the sidewalk outside the building where I had worked for 3 years. Holding a small box with my purse and a few personal items that security had deemed acceptable to take with me. I sat in my car for a long time, processing what had just happened. 3 years of excellent work, positive performance reviews, and successful projects, and it had ended with me being escorted out like a criminal. But as I sat there, I realized something important. Marcus had just made the biggest mistake of his professional life. Because I had recorded everything. That evening, Jake and I sat at our kitchen table with my laptop open, listening to the recordings I had made over the past month. Jake's face grew darker with each conversation. He actually said that clients would not want to work with a pregnant woman because it seems unprofessional? Word for word. And that pregnant employees are more expensive and less productive? All recorded. Jesus, Jess. This guy is either incredibly stupid or incredibly arrogant. I think both. The next morning, I called Rachel again. He fired you? Yesterday. For performance reasons, allegedly. Performance reasons that appeared right after you announced your pregnancy and that he cannot specifically document exactly. And you have him on tape saying that your pregnancy makes you less valuable to the company. Multiple times. Jess, this is not just a strong case. This is a career-ending case for him. What do we do first? File for unemployment immediately. When he contests it, we will have a hearing where he will have to explain why he fired someone with 3 years of excellent performance reviews. That will create an official record of his discriminatory statements. What about the EEOC complaint? File that too, but the unemployment hearing is going to be more immediate and more public. I spent the next 3 days documenting everything that had happened. Every conversation, every email, every instance of changed treatment after I announced my pregnancy. I created a timeline with supporting evidence for each event. I also started researching Marcus's background and the company's history with employment issues. What I found was very interesting. Pinnacle Solutions had been sued twice in the past 5 years for employment discrimination. One case involved age discrimination against a 58-year-old employee who was fired shortly after a new manager took over his department. The other involved racial discrimination against an African American woman who claimed she was passed over for promotions repeatedly despite strong performance. Both cases had been settled out of court with sealed settlements. More interestingly, Marcus had been the manager involved in both cases. I called Rachel with this information. So he has a pattern of discriminatory behavior. It looks that way. That is going to be very useful. It shows that this was not an isolated incident or a misunderstanding. It shows that he has a history of targeting employees in protected classes. The unemployment hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, I filed my EEOC complaint and started looking for a new job. The job search was depressing. I was 12 weeks pregnant now, just starting to show, and I could see the change in interviewers' expressions when I mentioned my pregnancy. Nobody said anything explicit, but the enthusiasm would drain out of their voices, and the follow-up calls never came. Finally, the day of the unemployment hearing arrived. It was held in a small conference room at the state unemployment office. Present were myself, Marcus, a hearing officer, and a stenographer. The hearing officer explained the process. Marcus would present his case for why I should be denied unemployment benefits, then I would present my response. Marcus had brought a folder of documents and a confident attitude. He spoke clearly and professionally about my alleged performance decline, my missed meetings, and my changed attitude toward work. Ms. Rodriguez showed a clear pattern of declining performance after announcing her pregnancy, he said. She became unreliable, missing important meetings and failing to meet deadlines. Her work quality suffered, and her commitment to the team decreased significantly. The hearing officer asked him for specific examples. Marcus cited the same incidents he had brought up during our conversations: the Morrison project delays, the missed client call, and general concerns about my focus and attitude. Then it was my turn. I had brought my own folder of documents, including performance reviews, client feedback, project completion records, and detailed timelines of every interaction with Marcus. But most importantly, I had brought transcripts of our recorded conversations. Your Honor, I would like to present evidence that my termination was based on pregnancy discrimination, not performance issues. I started by establishing my track record: 3 years of excellent performance reviews, successful completion of major projects, positive client feedback, and no documented performance issues prior to announcing my pregnancy. Then I presented the timeline showing how Marcus's treatment of me changed immediately after I told him I was pregnant. Finally, I presented excerpts from our recorded conversations. The hearing officer listened to Marcus saying that pregnant employees are more expensive and less productive. To him stating that having a pregnant woman on his team creates problems. To him telling me that my pregnancy made me less valuable to the company. Marcus's face went white as his own words played back in the small conference room. The hearing officer looked at him. Mr. Williams, can you explain these statements? Those conversations were taken out of context. In what context would it be appropriate to tell an employee that her pregnancy makes her less valuable to the company? I was trying to have an honest discussion about business realities. The business reality is that pregnancy discrimination is illegal under federal law. I did not discriminate against her because of her pregnancy. I terminated her for performance reasons. Performance reasons that, according to her documentation, did not exist prior to her pregnancy announcement and cannot be specifically substantiated. The hearing continued for another hour, but the outcome was clear from the moment Marcus heard his own voice making discriminatory statements. 2 weeks later, I received the hearing officer's decision. I was eligible for full unemployment benefits, and the termination was found to be without cause. But that was just the beginning. With the unemployment hearing victory in hand, Rachel referred me to a prominent employment attorney in Chicago named David Kim. David specialized in discrimination cases and had a reputation for aggressive advocacy for his clients. Our first meeting was in his downtown office, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. "I have reviewed all your documentation," David said, spreading my files across his conference table. "This is one of the strongest pregnancy discrimination cases I have seen." "Strong enough to win?" "Strong enough to make them very sorry they ever messed with you." David explained the legal process. "We would file a lawsuit in federal court alleging pregnancy discrimination, wrongful termination, and violation of the Family and Medical Leave Act. We would seek damages for lost wages, emotional distress, punitive damages, and attorney fees." "What kind of timeline are we looking at?" "These cases usually take 12 to 18 months to resolve. But given how clear-cut this is, I suspect they will want to settle much sooner." "What if they do not want to settle?" "Then we go to trial, and a jury gets to hear your boss explaining why he thinks pregnant women are bad for business." David was right about the timeline. Within 6 weeks of filing the lawsuit, Pinnacle Solutions attorneys reached out about settlement discussions. The first offer was insulting: 6 months of salary and a promise to remove the termination from my personnel file. David's response was swift and brutal. He filed for expedited discovery, demanding all of Marcus's personnel files, all documentation related to the other discrimination cases, and depositions from every employee who had witnessed Marcus's behavior toward me. The discovery process was fascinating and horrifying. Through depositions and document requests, we learned that Marcus's discriminatory behavior was much worse than I had realized. He had made inappropriate comments about female employees' appearance, questioned whether mothers could be committed to their careers, and routinely assigned the most challenging projects to male employees while giving women more administrative tasks. We also discovered that the company had received complaints about Marcus from multiple employees over the years, but had never taken disciplinary action. Most damaging of all, we found emails between Marcus and his supervisor discussing my pregnancy. In one email, Marcus wrote, "The Jessica situation is going to be a problem. Pregnant women are always more trouble than they are worth." His supervisor had responded, "Handle it however you think is best." When David shared these discoveries with opposing counsel, the settlement offers started getting more serious. The second offer was better: 1 year of salary, health insurance coverage through the end of my pregnancy, and a neutral reference. David countered with a demand for 2 years of salary, full benefits, punitive damages, and Marcus's termination. "You want them to fire him?" I asked. "I want them to understand that there are consequences for illegal behavior. Your boss did not just hurt you. He created liability for the entire company and exposed them to significant financial damages." The negotiations continued for several months. During this time, I had found a new job with a company that was genuinely supportive of working parents. My new boss was a woman who had 3 children of her own. And she made it clear that my pregnancy was viewed as a positive life event, not a business problem. I was also receiving unemployment benefits and had filed for Medicaid to cover my prenatal care, so I was not under immediate financial pressure to settle. Marcus, on the other hand, was not having a good year. Through my former colleagues, I learned that the lawsuit had become common knowledge at Pinnacle Solutions. Employees were talking openly about the discriminatory things Marcus had said and done. Several people had come forward with their own stories of inappropriate behavior. The company's HR department was conducting a full investigation, and Marcus had been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. In March, 7 months after I was fired, David called with news. They want to settle. Final offer: 18 months of salary, full benefits through the end of the year, $50,000 in punitive damages, and Marcus Williams is no longer employed by the company. I was quiet for a long moment, processing the numbers. It was more money than I had ever had at once, and it represented complete vindication of my position. What about the non-disclosure agreement? They wanted one, but I refused. You have the right to tell your story. And they agreed to that? They agreed because they know that if this goes to trial, it is going to be much more expensive and much more public. I accepted the settlement. The settlement was finalized 2 weeks before my due date. I used part of the money to take an extended maternity leave with my new company, knowing that I could focus completely on bonding with my baby without worrying about finances. Emma Rose was born on June 15, a healthy 7-pound baby girl with Jake's dark hair and my stubborn personality. Holding her for the first time, I thought about how different things would have been if I had let Marcus intimidate me into quitting. 3 months after Emma was born, I received a LinkedIn message from someone I did not recognize. Hi Jessica, my name is Maria Santos. I worked at Pinnacle Solutions until recently. I heard about your case against Marcus Williams, and I wanted to thank you. Your lawsuit gave me the courage to report some things that happened to me. I thought you should know that you helped other people too. Over the following weeks, I heard from several other former Pinnacle employees. Apparently, the investigation into Marcus's behavior had uncovered a pattern of discrimination and harassment that went back years. Multiple employees had come forward with complaints, and the company had quietly settled several additional cases. Marcus Williams was not just fired, he was effectively blacklisted from the consulting industry in Chicago. Word had spread about his discriminatory behavior, and no reputable firm would hire him. I also learned that Pinnacle Solutions had implemented comprehensive anti-discrimination training, revised their HR policies, and brought in an outside consultant to review their hiring and promotion practices. Change was happening, and I had been the catalyst. 6 months after Emma was born, I returned to work at my new company. My boss welcomed me back warmly and had arranged for a comfortable private space where I could pump milk for Emma. The contrast with my experience at Pinnacle could not have been more stark. Here, my pregnancy and motherhood were seen as normal life events that the company could easily accommodate. Several of my colleagues were parents themselves, and they offered practical advice and support. I used part of the settlement money to establish a college fund for Emma and to make a donation to the National Women Hess Law Center, which provides legal assistance to women facing workplace discrimination. A year later, I was promoted to senior marketing manager, with a salary that exceeded what I had been making at Pinnacle Solutions. David Kim and I stayed in touch, and he occasionally referred other discrimination cases to me for consultation. Having been through the process myself, I could offer emotional support and practical advice to women facing similar situations. One of these cases involved a woman named Patricia who had been fired after requesting accommodation for her pregnancy-related morning sickness. Her boss had told her that she was being dramatic and that women have been having babies for thousands of years without needing special treatment. I helped Patricia document her interactions with her employer and connected her with David for legal representation. Her case settled for even more money than mine had, and her boss was terminated. 2 years after my settlement, I received an unexpected phone call from Marcus Williams. Jessica, this is Marcus. I know you probably do not want to hear from me, but I wanted to apologize. I was silent for a long moment, not sure how to respond. I lost my job, my career, and my reputation because of what I did to you. I have had a lot of time to think about it, and I realized that I was completely wrong. What do you want from me, Marcus? Nothing. I just wanted you to know that I understand now why what I did was so harmful. I have 2 daughters, and the thought of someone treating them the way I treated you makes me sick. Have you learned anything from this experience? I have learned that my attitudes toward women and working mothers were based on ignorance and prejudice. I have been in therapy, and I am trying to become a better person. That is good to hear. I do not expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I am sorry for what I put you through. After we hung up, I thought about forgiveness and redemption. I was not ready to forgive Marcus completely, but I was glad to hear that he seemed to understand the gravity of what he had done. Emma is 3 years old now, a bright and curious toddler who loves books and puzzles. When she is older, I will tell her about the fight I had to have to protect our family, and about the importance of standing up for yourself when people try to treat you unfairly. I still work for the same company, now as director of marketing. My colleagues know about my discrimination case, and I have become an informal mentor for other working parents in the organization. The settlement money allowed us to buy a house with a good school district and to start a small scholarship fund for single mothers pursuing education. But the most valuable thing I gained from this experience was not money. It was the knowledge that I am strong enough to fight back when someone tries to harm me or my family. Marcus Williams thought he could intimidate me into giving up my career because I was pregnant. He thought he could make discriminatory statements without consequences. He thought his position of power protected him from the law. He was wrong about all of it. And because I had the courage to stand up to him, other women will not have to face the same discrimination. That is the real victory, and that is worth more than any settlement.